In this video program, I want to help you to make sense of why you may not be achieving the things that you really want in your life, by understanding how we process the mass of information received from the outside and its effects on our behaviour, thoughts and feelings. This is through the NLP communication model. And this is a key part for you to understand why you may not be achieving the things that you think you want to achieve but don't know how to. So what does NLP stand for? Well, it's Neuro-Linguistic Programming and was founded by John Grinder and Richard Bandler in the early 70s. They were fascinated by people, so am I, who were excellent at personal change, people who were amazing communicators, and how some people excelled while others just failed. I wonder when you think about what you do in your life and how you think about things. And so this will really make sense to you about why sometimes success doesn't come easy. So the NLP communication model describes how we take in messages from outside the body, the external event, the places around us, the surroundings, and move them through a series of filters into our memory. It's an important model to learn because you can start to understand how your own internal representation, your internal thoughts and feelings and all of that stuff of an event can continue to impact your lives and what you can actually do about it. So while you are listening to this, here's a little sort of thought process. So can you now look around the room and observe how you feel about the chair that you are sitting on right now? Or how is the temperature? Or how is your breathing? And I bet you hadn't really thought about that until I'd said about it, did you? We notice many things in our surroundings, but most of it remains unconscious because we just automatically do it. Our mind has a really, really good mechanism to be able to do things sort of on target, to be able to do things that we don't even think about. So consciously processing this information is not at all practical and possible, is it? If you had to think about breathing every second, it would be a really hard process. So whenever the brain has so much data to process, we delete and distort and generalize it. These are our unique filters, and the moment the information passes through these filters, thoughts are formed. Our five senses help us process the estimated, wait for it, 12 million bits of information that we receive every second. That's a lot. So to put that into context, that much information would fill a 64 gigabyte tablet in less than a day, whereas our brain keeps going. It's no wonder that some people go into absolute overload. In order to protect us from informational overload, our minds put this flood of information through several filters. Clever mind, eh? Our conscious mind can process only around 7 to 8 pieces of information at any one time, and the rest is taken and processed unconsciously. So many of the things that we do, we don't even realise we're doing it because we are acting it out unconsciously. So try this. Try this as an example with a friend or a colleague. Now, on a piece of paper, write down 10 or 15 things about an object in front of you. Let's say the table. Once you've done this, ask your friend or partner to do the same. In the end, compare the answer. See how you both understand that object, that table, differently. You'll have a very different view of what you see, what you feel, what you hear, perhaps, from your colleague or friend. The point is the reality changes from person to person. It is based on what happens inside the head. And we are always using these filters to make our beliefs correct. We have our own model of our own world. So what are these filters? So looking at the model in front of you, you can see that the first filter is deletion. Your unconscious mind is constantly deleting information that you don't need to store. Obviously, with all that amount coming in, we can't process that. So deletion happens when we deliberately focus on certain aspects of life or matter. The deletion is all about focus. Have you ever driven a car and then wondered, how did you get to that destination because you'd forgotten you were even driving? I have. When we are focusing on one thing, event, aspect, picture, or sound, we'll deliberately omit so much information from outside of the focus area. So, for example, when you're watching a movie and a small child is crying in the cinema, a lot of us are able to delete the sounds of the child and focus on the movie, whilst others may delete the sound of the movie and focus on the crying child. Another example. Now look around your room and find all the bits that may have red there. You might have quite a lot, you may not have a lot. But just look around and try and find all the bits that have red in the room. If you don't have any red, look for another colour. Now close your eyes. Now I want you to try and find all the blue things in the room. It's likely you won't see this as the primary focus is on the first colour, the red or whatever colour that you chose. Interesting. So filter 2, distortion. Distortion occurs when we start to make assumptions, our imagination starts to happen, hallucinations for filling the gaps in the information provided. Your brain makes something of the information that's coming up, but it's actually quite wrong. An example, when I moved into my new house, the burglar alarm went off on my first night. It was just a fault, and I checked the whole house to make sure I was alone. But for the rest of the night, the slightest noise was taken as a sign that there was an intruder in my home. This was because my brain was distorting the external event of a banging pipe as though it was a noise to be afraid of. I had distorted information. So the third filter is generalization. We draw conclusions from life's events, and we are really good at putting similar experiences together. Oh boy, aren't we? These generalizations are triggered automatically when we face similar kinds of situations again. This is largely unconscious and an automatic reaction because we base it on a generalized feeling, a generalized thing that we see or we've been through. Let's take an example. Let's say you went for an interview and didn't get selected. You then went for another interview and didn't get selected. And you kept going and you just didn't get that interview. You didn't get that job. So you may start to create generalizations that you always fail in interviews. Later, that generalization may become broader. And you may start believing that you fail at everything. We start to bring in our own stories of things that are absolutely not true. Our beliefs have an impact on almost all aspects of our life. It combines our values, capabilities, and behaviours. In a nutshell, we take information from the outside world through our 5 senses, and this information then becomes an internal representation of external events. And we're really quite good at this. This internal representation depends on what we delete, distort, and generalize. Now, looking at the model, there are a few other filters that come into play. So our language filters, words like success, will mean different things to different people. The meta programs, the things we say to ourselves, the words we use. Now, success in a workplace may mean leaving at 4:30 to go home to their family, but to someone else it may mean earning more money. Our memories, we all have different memories. And when we're in the same situation as others, our memories of that situation can be interpreted very differently. I bet you've been with people in the past at a certain event, and every person will come back with a very different memory, because that is the reason why, how they make it feel, how that memory has made them feel, what they've seen, what they've heard. All of those different internal representations start to take hold. We all run different programs, decision-making strategies. From brushing our teeth to tying our shoelaces, everything we do has some program or strategy attached to it. And this is run from our unconscious level. We all have different values and beliefs, and some may be limiting, which will stop us achieving what we need to achieve. But we may not even know this, as it can sit in the unconscious level. Even our attitudes are a filter. We have different attitudes to different situations, which can really determine what our behaviours are like, and in turn how we feel about that. So let's recap. After we have filtered the information that comes in through our deletion, distortion and generalization filters, we create what we call an internal representation, a picture, sound or feeling in our mind of whatever it is we are looking at, listening to, or feeling, smelling or tasting. Those internal representations have a direct impact on our emotions or state. So what if you could change those internal representations and change the way you feel about certain situations? Consciously and not unconsciously. The way you think, the way you behave will help you to create change at all of these levels. It will help us to change our filters. It helps us to redefine these internal representations, which of course have a direct impact on the way about how we feel about the world around us and the decisions that we make in our lives. So why is this important to understand? Well, when you're trying to change something or provide a different way of looking at things in your life and you are getting stuck, and because there's a map or an internal representation is our subjective reality, which may at times be very different from the objective reality in the outside world. Let me give you an example. Take someone who has panic attacks. They've learnt to do this behaviour really well and have almost labelled themselves with depression in some cases. Coupled with the emotions and the physiological increase in heart rate, confirms to the brain that it's doing the right thing. They have created their own map of reality, and they are so good at playing out their coping strategies really well. They actually believe that they are depressed and it is part of them, when actually depression is that they are doing it really, really well because of their internal representation. So why is this important to understand? Because a map or an internal representation is our subjective reality, which may at times be very different. And when people discuss their problems, they generally think that they are talking about the objective reality, but what they really are talking about is their subjective reality. In other words, most problems that we think we have are not really a part of reality, but simply a part of our own map that will keep us safe. Like the girl who believes that she is depressed. She simply does depression really well, and her body and her mind has started out strategies to be able to cope with this. So if you can understand the NLP communication model clearly, you can be much more aware of how you process information, what you delete, what you distort or generalize, to make much better and more effective decisions. You can manage your emotions much better. You can start to change your communication pattern as you will understand people better and yourself. Your map of the world may be very different to that of someone else, but you will appreciate that. You can reduce the number of conflicts you face regularly, as you may respect another person's point of view better. Wouldn't that be great? And you wouldn't even get triggered by that because you understand how this model works. So this will help you gather more information effectively and make sense of why you may be stuck in ingrained patterns of behaviour and emotional states, and to help you make the relevant changes and to bring about the real meaning of success for you. I hope this has been really useful as a starting point for you understanding why the NLP communication model has such a massive, massive impact on how you view your own world.